running the show here, and so we'll go in order. So Anne, you can begin.
Hi. All right, so first we're going to talk about some household numbers. So this is basically how a household number and a 4D case gets broken down. You see the first two digits are your prefix, which is your county number. So 01 for Adams and so on. The next 6-digit is it's assigned by ACES, so our 6-digit county assigned. The next two is the suffix, so 92, 45, and so on. The next one is a check digit system assigned, so that one is assigned by ACES, and the NCP user assigned. All right, so the difference between a household number and a 4D case number is that you do not have the last two, the check digit and the NCP user assigned. That's only in a 4D case. The first 6, 8, 10 numbers are going to be your household number. Okay, so household numbers. One second, I'm slipping to the slide. The 6-byte household number is a county assigned number. It is assigned to the custodial party regardless of who the applicant is. The exception to the above rule is for foster fee cases. You assign a household number to the placing parent. Okay, in regards to the suffix, the system will require the following suffix assignment when foster care fee cases. Those are typically a 25. Non-public assistance applications, they're 44. And then the responding reciprocals is usually a 45 through 56. Each state has a different suffix. All other suffixes are county assigned. And as a general rule, is that the first NCP of the record is the A for the suffix, the second would be the B, and so on, the third would be the C, and so on. So however, there will be times that you cannot do this. It is not written in stone. If you were to go to, in your shortcut on ACES, if you were to type in list case, is where you would find your list of household numbers for your county and the suffixes that are available for the next case. So if you see that there's already an A that exists, you would go to the next one for your next case number. All right, so now we're just going to jump into state IDs and 4D IDs. So every person on ACES has a 4D ID. If a person does not have a known date of birth, no state ID will be assigned to them in ACES. They must have a date of birth. If a date of birth is known to the state ID and 4D ID, it will be assigned during the case initiation process. So example of both a state ID and a 4D ID is your AY 123456 would be your 4D ID, and the state ID typically is it just takes off the Y, or it takes off the A, and you're just left with the Y 123456. So if you have a case where there is no date of birth, and so no state ID will be assigned, it typically would enter or create a 4D ID that would begin with like a BB or a BX. If at a later point a state ID is assigned because a date of birth is obtained, it will typically have a different state ID. It may assign a Y234567, in which case you would have a 4D ID of a BB 123456, and then the state ID would be that Y23456. They do not have to match. They do not have to be in sync like it is here with the AY and just the Y. It is not required that they sync. So when you're searching in the SIDMA system, how you would do that is you go to Inquiry menu and then Option F, or you could type in the shortcut in your ACES menu of Search SID. When you collect, there's 3 options here you get to search from. You can search by a name, in which case you would just enter the last name, comma, then the first name. There are no spaces after the comma. You could do a search by social, and then you could do a search by the state ID if you already know it. So once you do a search by name, I think in this case we did a search by name. It came up with how close you, or obviously the more information easy to information. Once ID and the date of birth and social if there's one there. It would also tell you if
You're cutting out a little bit, Anne. So everybody, can you make sure your cameras are turned off and your microphones are on mute, because Anne is cutting out a little bit. It helps with bandwidth.
Oh, there we go. You have one.
Mm-hmm. Do we have you back, Anne? Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay.
So
try it again.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we could hear you just
so
then.
You see in the last three columns. Okay, great. You'll see it says ACES, trails, and 4A. Some have Ys and some are blank. If it is a Y there, that means that they are known to that that program. So if in the case of, like, I think the 5th or 6th one down, you see they're known to ACES, trails, and to the 4A. All right, let me find that slide. Okay, so when working at case initiation, you will enter the person's information under the person section on the screen shown. Hold on, I'm trying to follow along on my own slides. I apologize. Okay, so when you're working a case initiation case, you'll enter the person's information under the person section on the screen shown. Once completed, you would just click the complete entry. I recommend doing a SIDMOD search prior to completing the screen, so that the person that you're entering in there, you want to make sure that they exist in SIDMOD. And if they don't, then you would create a new SIDMOD. And again, the more information that you have, the better it would be, so that duplicates are not created. It's very difficult for us to fix cases once a case is created and you find out that they already existed in ACES. It's very difficult to merge cases. So it's best to get all your information and do your due diligence search using SIDMOD and so on to make sure that that person is or is not known to SIDMOD or to ACES as well. Okay. So once you have all the information that's in there, you can go ahead and just hit add the person or approve the person, and it'll go ahead and assign a state ID. All right, if the person is they consider like a conflict. So in this case, I believe a conflict exists. So what that means is the person's information may be the similar person that already exists in SIDMOD. And if you'll see just to the left column is a number of 0.76, I believe, or something like that. That's an actual percentage. And that's telling you the percentage of possibility in which that person already exists in ACES, or excuse me, in SIDMOD. And so what you want to do is you want to go check your information and see if that person is the same person that is in SIDMOD. If so, you would make sure that their data is correct. If their data is not correct, you would just submit a problem log and we would update their information in SIDMOD so that you can add it to the case properly. Okay, here's how you would submit a SIDMOD override. So if the person, it came up and it said that there was a conflict and you ensure that those people are not the same person that you're trying to add a state ID to or create and say less case initiation, you need to submit a SIDMOD override. And basically what you're saying that I know this person doesn't exist and I need you to kind of override that conflict that it keeps coming up with. So what you do is you go to, on your ACES menu to the left, you would go all the way down to where it's highlighted in yellow and it says SIDMOD override. It'll go ahead and bring up these boxes for you to complete. And what you're going to do is you're going to put the household number and all the information. You need to create, when you enter the SIDMOD override, you must make sure that you put in your information correctly, because that's how they're going to create the override. Whatever you enter is how they're going to create that override. So if you're submitting this override and you accidentally misspell a name or put in a date of birth with the wrong year or date or something, when they go ahead and approve this and then you try to enter it again, if you then put in the correct information, it's not going to match and you're going to get that conflict again. So what we had always recommended with the state is to make sure you take a screenshot of how you submitted your override, so that when that comes back and says that it's approved and the SIDMOD has been overrid, when you enter your information back through case initiation screen, it should go through properly and you should get no errors. So you always want to make sure you take a screenshot so you can ensure that you enter it the exact same way that you submitted your override. Okay, so when you use case main L, so in the scenario that's listed here, you'll see number 2 is an unknown person. And so now let's say you have the information, you have their full name, and now you have a date of birth. What you're going to do is you're going to go into case main L, you're going to enter number 2, and it'll take you to a screen to where you're going to update that information. And it will, at that point, it will then assign a state ID. And this is where you would have the situation of your 4D ID being a BB and your state ID may be an AY or something similar to that. Again, they do not have to match. Okay, so this is in case main L, this is where you'll enter the information. You'll go ahead and you'll enter the social and you'll enter in the last name. You changed it from unknown to that name there, and you added the date of birth. And once you hit next, it'll go ahead and it'll search for the information in SIDMOD to see that it's not a duplicate, and then it'll create the state ID.
I just wanted to remind you here in case main L, the bullet 2, make sure you enter one change at a time, because you'll enter, say I have a social now or a date of birth, I'm going to enter the date of birth first, go back in, option L, do the social, hit enter, do the last name, because it's going to take each one as a ticket to the help desk.
Thank you, Whitney. Okay.
Okay, I think this is me, right?
You.
Thank you, Anne. Any questions for Anne? SIDMOD overrides and household numbers. Thank you, Anne.
Okay.
Okay, so parties in a case set. So everybody in a case set, all case sets are associated with a custodial parent, one non-custodial parent, and child or children in common. The most common place that you want to research your information is cross-reference option D. You can see all the case sets and other county involvement, in, if any. So this is an example of basically a case set. So I have case number 37007478037A with Mickey Mouse as the CP, Minnie Mouse as the NCP, and child Mickey Mouse. My 40 court case is 02JV22, and then another case set, 37007478458A, is also CP Mickey Mouse, NCP Minnie Mouse, and child Mickey Mouse with the same court order, 02JV22. If you look at option D, this is your case set. You can basically see quite a lot of information on a cross-reference option D. This is really important in your case initiation and cross-referencing to try to see if parties already exist, or if you need to copy over a case set because they went to a different county. Option D shows you current and former 40 cases. You can see quite all of 40 case information like the class and status, the category, who the enforcing county is, if there's a court order or a CBMS case ID. You can also see the application date or if cases have been closed or opened. And then it'll show the different cases in that case set. There's several things in cross-reference I actually want to point out here. You can see the total case set in option A, which is persons in a 40 case. And then you can also see cross-reference. I like to always pick a person in cross-reference A, and then I can check option E to see every current 40 case that they're ever on. You can also cross-reference any persons by their 4D ID with option E. And also you can cross-reference any person with their 4D ID in option F to see all of their person's court orders, all their court cases. So cross-reference is really one of my favorite screens. I actually use this quite a bit to see many, many things. You can tell a lot about the case. You can see if there's an order. You can see if there's multiple parties. You can see if there's multiple obligees here. So there's quite many things that you can see in cross-reference. My favorite options in cross-reference are pretty much A, D, E, F, and I. And I also like to use J if all I have is a FSR account number or a 40 case number. And so there's many things that you can do in cross-reference. But your case set is what you're looking at. And when you're going to cross-reference all of your parties to see if they're on other cases or if they have current court orders and who they're with. The next thing is about interfaces. So we interface with many different things in ACES. We have interfaces with CBMS, Trails, SIDMOD, and Judicial. I pointed out here on this screen here that this is where you can see some of this information. For CBMS, my favorite screens to go to are actually 4A inquiry option A, or case main option A. This is where you can see all of the information from CBMS. It shows if a child or a CP is active, as long as the CBMS ID is linked. It shows their beginning and end dates. It shows if they're medical, they have medical there. It shows quite a bit of information there. We also get the Trails interface, and when we get the Trails interface, it's sort of the same screen. So inquiry option A, again, one of my favorites, where it shows the Trails flags, which the foster care flags would be next to the children. There's a flag there that has a Y, or it'd be blank if there's no foster care for the children. It would be a Y there. It also shows the same information in case main option A. And then you can also check on a case set list foster care or list 4E, which is to check the Trails information and the foster care information per child. We also interface with SIDMOD. So just as Anne talked earlier, we interface with SIDMOD, and it's inquiry option A and search SID. We can check inquiry option D, and that's where we can see all of the information. SIDMOD shows us if they were active in CBMS, if they were ever active in Trails or foster care. It shows those flags there. And so we get all of those interfaces on ACES, and we can see the information. We also get interfaces from Judicial. So we have interfaces with Judicial because we do the DISH, which is the Data Information Sharing application. And so we get all those interfaces from them as well. So if the parties are active on our system and they actually go out there and get a court order, we'll get a hit in our Judicial establishment screen. And we get an alert that lets us know that information. We also transmit cases through to Judicial by APA, for those of you that do APA, administrative process. Talking a little bit about interfaces, we work many of the problem logs that come to us. If the interface is not working, if something is basically wrong, because if we get a case and there you guys are asking us to change the class and status to active TANF or to active trails. Remember, we interface with those. And so if they're not linked correctly, or if CBMS or TANF didn't code their case correctly and it's not coming over, we have to work with those partners to make sure that we get the information. We get a few problem logs that counties want us to force it. Remember, we can't force it, because if it doesn't read it, it's just not reading it. A lot of times it's how they're coding the information. I see a lot with trails, they have duplicate client IDs on their side. It might not be a duplicate state ID, but they actually have duplicate client IDs. They assign different client IDs in their systems in CBMS and trails. And so we'd have to work on those interfaces with those county partners. So we do ask you guys, if you're still struggling with those, to get them to link, to make sure that they look active. You can certainly send them into the ACES help desk. But we will work with those county partners, and we ask you to work with your county partner as well, to make sure that they're coding correctly, like on the TANF screen, that they code the absent parent screen correctly, and then on the trail side that there's no duplicate client IDs, and that the funding and service codes are correct. Because if they're not, they're never going to interface with ACES. And so we want to make sure that they're correct. Any questions about those interfaces? Okay. Okay, court orders. So if anybody remembers my predecessor, Sue Jess, her biggest thing with everything in ACES, and prior to putting anything on ACES, is research, research, research. And so especially putting up court orders, you want to do all of your research, basically making sure you're getting all of the information so you can establish the order. And then you're going to want to make sure that you put up the formatting correctly. And I have some information in the next few slides for this. Verify if it was a dish case, because if it was a transmitted dish case, we can actually pull it off the establishment screen, judicial RRL screen, option T. It'll help us put up our court order because they're sending the information back. Check that it's an establishment or a mod order. And then also review if it is a legal mod or a non-legal mod. We have ACES user guides on the website so you can tell the difference, what is a legal mod and what is not a non-legal mod. But research for putting up any court order on the system. That's where also, as I talked earlier about cross-reference, always cross-referencing your cases, cross-referencing your child, because remember the order follows the child. And so you're going to want to make sure that if this is a brand new order, is it already on the system? Is it correct? And that we have all the information we need to put it on the system. Again, research. We have court minutes. All of you guys should have access to court minutes. We actually in Cron, that's right. I like those notes. If it's not in Cron, it didn't happen. It's true. Always doing your research. Before I was taught to put up any court order, I always researched the court minutes to make sure it was actually there. I have seen at times where they sent us the documents, but they didn't put it in the court minutes, so it didn't have any information there to make sure that it really was a valid court order. And then doing your cross-reference in FSR search, and I'm going to show you how to get an FSR search, because if they sent us, if there's a non-40 account or if there's an account out there, we can check that information as well. And also doing your research in the state services portal, because remember, your court orders follow the child. And so in state services portal, you can research NCPs, children, CPs as well. And so those are all places you can do all of your research to make sure that you're putting up the correct order for your case set. Your 40 court case formatting. So remember, our county FIPS code, our state FIPS code is 08, and then you have your county FIPS code. And then it's either a court type, either a 1 for a district court case or a 3 for a juvenile court case. And then it's a year of action. So we're in 2021, can't believe it. And then our type of action, DR or JV. And then our court sequence numbers. So they go in order like we do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so they assign per your county, 1, 2, 3, and those are your court orders. You would think as long as I've been here in child support that I'd have all your FIPS code memorized, but I do not. This is actually a handout in the training today. And so if you guys don't already have this, this is something I always had tacked up on my wall to make sure that you know the county FIPS codes. And so this is where you can identify your county FIPS codes and who they belong to. For those of you out there that are brand new, this is really, really helpful for you to tack up on your wall, print it out, and save it. It shows the county number for each county and then the FIPS code for each county. Not only do we have a 40 court case ID, but we also have a legal docket number. So especially when we get information from the court, they send us information about the legal docket number. The legal docket number starts with a D and it's the number of the county. So if you look at that FIPS code chart 035 in that county, and then the year of the court order, if it's a DR or a JV, and then the 6-byte court case ID. We also, when a court order is created, we create FSR account numbers. So for all of you that are brand new out there, we have numbers for everything, right? We have 40K court orders, we have household numbers, we have state ID numbers, we have everything, but we also have FSR account numbers. And so anytime a 40 court case is created, we create an FSR account number. You can also check if there is a non-40 account number that already exists to make sure that it transitioned to the 40 side appropriately. And to do this, you can check FSR search. FSR search, you can search by parties, social security numbers, or the legal court case ID. My favorite search to search in FSR search is actually the legal court case ID. And so that's where that chart that I just showed you will come in handy to you. So you'll know the county number. And then you want to make sure that when you search FSR search that the names match the same that we have in ACES so that it will transition correctly. I know my predecessor, Sue Jess, kind of beat this into us. I know she did to me, to check FSR search all of the time before you put up a court order. I have this actually as a direct command on my favorites, and so I invite you guys to do the same thing. Before you start putting up orders, check if there is an FSR account number out there on the non-40 side, and make sure that your names that we have on ACES and on the 40 side match. If they don't match, you're going to want to send in a problem log so that we can sync them up and make sure that they match. This is an example of FSR search. Like I said, the direct command to get there is FSR SRCH. I add that to my favorite because that's someplace I check for everything. Notice it defaults to obligor search at the bottom. It already puts an A there for you. However, I like to search by the legal docket number. And so I like to search by that D, the county number, the year, DR 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my favorite search. But you can search by a obligor name, an obligee name, a child search. You can search by a social, and you can even search by an FSR account number. So if you have any of those things, you can do that. You can also search by a court case ID. Again, you can search by any of those things. But like I said, my preference and my favorite search is the legal docket number, just because that's what I was taught, and that's kind of how my favorite search has been. But you can search pretty much by any of those. But you can search by your options at the bottom are obligor search, obligee search, and child search. Any questions about that? I've also attached in this training FSR Search Desk Aid. It's really, really helpful for those of you that are learning this. And so make sure you download that as well. So with your court order creation, there's some things that happen when you create a court order on ACES. It creates an FSR account number. It's created and transitioned if it was already existed on the non-40 side. It actually sends out new account notices to the parties. A ledger can be initiated after court order initiation. A pay plan can be set, and then ACES will monitor for enforcement remedies, the enforcement pool, and anything and remedies outside of the enforcement pool. The judicial recently referred list. So this is that list that I was talking about. Our interface with judicial is that when you get court orders, you should be checking, especially if it's an APA order or if you get an alert, you're going to want to check CRON because it's probably sitting out there on your judicial RRL screen. It's in the establishment menu option T. It's out there by county. And so it's your judicial order established alerts. And so it shows actually APA and judicial alerts, whether it's an establishment order or a modified order. And so what's really, really cool about this screen is that if you select this judicial recently referred list, it actually helps you fill out your court order. And so that's what's in it for me, is that it actually, I was part of that DISH group and it was pretty cool. We actually asked that it kind of pre-fill your court case screen, you know, the court order screen. I was doing court orders for years and it's 10 screens. So you want to make sure that you're filling out as much as possible. And so with the judicial referred list, it actually fills out a lot of this information for you. So I invite you to all look in CRON to make sure before you put up an order, if there's an alert, it's probably sitting out there on the judicial RRL screen. There's an ACES user guide for this. It's actually really, really good. My predecessor Sue just wrote it, and so it's phenomenal. And it teaches you how to use this screen and how to pull from this screen to put up your court cases. One of the things we do see at this level, at the state level for problem logs, is that counties kind of beat putting up the order manually instead of waiting for the alert. And so I invite you guys to make sure you check your court minutes and you look for the support event in the court minutes, because if you got a support event in your court minutes, we should have got an alert back. And so it should be sitting out there on your judicial RRL screen. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. So this is an example of the judicial RRL screen establishment T. I copied over some information because I didn't want to share any person's data, but we actually made this a searchable screen. And so we sent this out probably, I want to say last November. It's actually a searchable screen now. It used to just come by date, and so you kind of seen it in date order, but now it's a searchable screen. You can actually search by legal docket number, that legal docket number I showed you how to use, or you can search by last name and first name. And so if you're looking for an alert that came through on if you got a CRON and it said it had a judicial alert, you can come through this screen and actually search for it instead of having to page by page each screen. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. Moving on. Multiple obligees. So multiple obligees are the same obligor, but different CPs, different obligees. And so at times, at the state office, we get requests to put up like a DE or a JE when really it's a multiple obligee. If you cross-reference your child in cross-reference option E by your child, and I always check option F, which is listing all the person's court orders, you can actually see if the child has additional orders with the same obligor. If it's the same obligor that you're trying to link, then you'll know this is a multiple obligee case. It's not a multiple obligor, it's an obligee case. And so it's basically the same NCP paying two different CPs. So the child, for instance, the child was with grandma and then it went back to mom. And so you're linking that obligee as to the court order. Remember doing this, there's an ACES user guide instruction. You also want to make sure you did the legal work on it to add a payee. There's a motion to add a payee in DocGen. Because you want, before you start linking obligees, you want to make sure the legal paperwork is done. The court order is not the same. It's going to be the same court order. It's not going to be a DE or a JE. It's really the same exact court case ID and the same exact FSR account number, but your suffix will be an 01 and an 02. My favorite place to check this is actually inquiry on the court order, and I think it's page 4. And if you look at the bottom of page 4, it tells you who's obligee 01, who's obligee 02, who's 3. I mean, I've seen cases where there's 6 obligees. And so you're going to want to check that. You can also see which one's number 1, which number 2. You can see that in the court case. All FSR account numbers must either be 4D or non-4D, even if accounts are closed. So remember, if an obligee exists on one end of the spectrum, so if it's on 4D side and a different obligee is on the non-4D side, they both have to exist in the same world, active at the same time. And so you might have heard from us at the state office that we ask you to put up a dummy case because we need to link the correct obligees on both sides. And that's really, really important for the financial side of things, okay? And for multiple obligee cases, there's one enforcing county. So there should be one. Okay. Any questions about that? I'm looking in the chat here. How do you get cases off the judicial RRL that are really old ones? Yes, there is a problem log. You can send it in as a problem log. And we will help you clear those. It looks like they just didn't get linked. And so if it is the same dates that you have in your court order, you can actually select it off the judicial RRL screen and verify your order. And it does come off because it knows it's exactly the same information. If you have more questions about that, you can reach out to us at the OAs. So any questions about multiple obligees? Great. Okay. Next up is Jessica, I believe.
Renee, I think she got kicked out.
Did she get kicked out?
I think so. She was trying to get back in.
Yeah, she was having technical issues today. Let's see if she's on here. Okay, well, I can do it. All right, so legal mod versus non-legal mods. Legal mods are completed when the order has been modified either judicially or administratively. It includes temp to perm orders, MSO change orders, medical only orders, or added child orders. The things about legal mods is that you should never unverify the court case to put it up, because with legal modifications, you actually need a review and adjustment. And so you want to make sure that your review and adjustment rolls into history. Okay. So you want to make sure that you don't unverify because you don't want to type over what's already there. And so when you're adding, the only time you really unverify an order is to fix an error or to link a multiple obligee. Okay. A non-legal mod, and both of these, legal mod and non-legal mod, they actually have ACES user guide instructions out there, and it tells you when to use them and when not to use them. A valid reason for a non-legal mod is for variable orders. Those of you that have ever put up a variable order, you have one order to put up with those original dates, and then your next order for the next 3 months is like a different amount, but it's the same court dates. So that's a non-legal mod. You're going to use the same dates, but you're going to go into the court order without a review and adjustment history, and it's a non-legal mod, and you're going to change the MSO amount because that's what a variable order usually is. Same thing with the child on a flat order has emancipated. So if you have an emancipated child and you need to put up a non-legal mod to move all the money to the additional kids that are left there. Same thing for a per child order. If a child has emancipated, you're going to do the same thing. It's a non-legal mod. If parental rights were terminated, there's an ACES user guide for that as well. But that is also a non-legal mod if their rights were terminated, to zero out the MSO, and if there's arrears to continue to collect on those arrears. Also a non-legal mod, and I think people forget this one, when changing the immediate wage withholding code from an N to a Y. So if initially when the order was put up, it did not include that you can do a wage withholding, and so you had to code it as an N. Non-legal mod is used as well to change that code to a Y in the court case. You can also make sure that you're using to update the legal process code. So if your legal process code was A for administrative and now it's going to court and you need to change it to a P, that is also a non-legal mod. Remember, unverify is not the correct way for a legal mod or a non-legal mod, and so you're going to want to make sure that you're going to track the court case history correctly. Each modification, a legal mod and a non-legal mod, actually tracks court case history. And so, and I believe it's option F in the court order screen, establishment screen, it tracks court case history. And you can actually see the date that all the orders that have ever been put up. So you always want your court order history to be correct so that when you do calcs and things like that, you can go back and see the court order history. Any questions about that? Let me see the chat here. What if we abate the order after rights are terminated or change of custody? Yeah, it's still a non-legal mod for parental rights. So if it's already, I guess my question for Maureen is, did I answer your question there? Yes.
We usually abate our orders after parental rights are terminated so that we have everything in order.
Got it. So you do it legally, which is perfect, and that would be a legal mod.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were
right. Yes, absolutely. So I do know counties that do that because remember those are two separate entities. When they terminate their rights in the DNN cases, they don't really talk about the child support case, and so some counties actually file a motion to abate into their child support order to let the court know on the child support side that the MSO was abated. And that's correct too. And that would be a legal mod because you actually have dates and a review and adjustment to put up and to see the history when it was terminated. So that's correct, Marie. Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any questions about that? Okay. Okay, next up, I think it is Frank.
My turn.
Yeah.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Everyone see me? All right. So, I mean, case closure could be its own training on its own, but I'm just going to try to go over some important things on ACES. On the session, there's a couple handouts with all the closure codes and all the scenarios that you would need. And I'm not going to go for all of them, but you know that we have certain codes we have to use. It's all federal regulations. We can't just pick and choose closure codes or make up closure codes. We kind of have to use what we have and use it to the best closure code possible. If you're not sure on which closure code you want to use, you can always contact policy. Mary Claire is very involved with case closure, and she can help guide you if you're not sure on which closure code to use. Sometimes there's some odd scenarios out there. but mainly, yeah, we try to follow it in case the case gets audited. And if you do use a code, maybe that, it's a little, you're reaching for it, definitely cron it very good as to maybe why you use that code, in case it comes up later on. And we have to use 60-day closure when there's a custodial party. And, when money's owed to someone else, we have to give them a couple months to dispute it in case they say, no, there is money owed, or no, there's this other court order. So, sorry, I'm getting chats. We're chatting. Oops. Just lost my screen. So we have to give a 60-day notice to the other party. Now, obviously, if it's like state debt is only owed, we don't have to notify anyone if it's our state debt. So that's why we have the 60-day closure. We want to give the custodial party a chance to dispute it in case there is money owed. And then also, just so that they know what's going on. Sometimes people, their cases get closed and they don't get the closure notice, and they call back like a couple years later and they have no idea their case was closed. So you never know. But we just want to try and give them that option. Now, on ACES, when a case closes from maybe 60-day closure, depending on what was owed, or what this scenario, like what the closure scenario was, sometimes it'll just close the whole entire case out. Sometimes it'll just change it from, close out CP's portion and then close out, then you have to close out your portion. Or let's say, we close out CP's portion, and now it's a BA case, and then you're going to enforce on that state debt. So there's different things. So just because you maybe do the 60-day closure, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be completely closed. So, and sometimes too, things can get interrupted, depending on what closure code, like if it was like a locate one, and, we get a closure, maybe the case is paid off, you might get a edit or error message when you try to close the case saying, hey, you need to terminate the income withholding order, or you're still the custodian of record on the APA docs, you need to file these with the courts. Maybe you need to satisfy judgments, maybe you need to release liens, maybe you have active bench warrants. It's going to pop up something if there's something that you need to look at. So just be aware of that. But yeah, you definitely want to terminate your income withholding orders, get that process started. It could take a couple weeks for the employer to get it and get it updated. Bench warrants, if you happen to have an active bench warrant for someone, you definitely want to get that cleared up at the courts, or at least, maybe it was cleared up at the courts. Maybe you want to update it on ACES, so that, a couple years down the road, someone's not getting arrested after they got pulled over. And then the CSC 160, that's the APA documents. And that was something, Sue, that was one of the later edits we added, but, people were closing their cases and sending the file off, and then the file would get destroyed. And then later realizing that they never filed any of those court documents with the courts. So, that's kind of a mess. You have to recreate all these orders and stuff like that. So we have a question here about interruption. Can you talk about when the system does an interruption on a 60-day closure, please? So basically, I'm not sure all the reasons, but if there's like a verified address, it'll stop closure, or if, something will pick it up. Usually it's on the locate ones where you have a case and locate. So you'd have to let me know a little bit more about what your interrupt process, what it was. If it was a case that was in closure for locate, and then it says, something's located. So basically, you can send those in to us. We will review them. If you think that they should have been closed by the system and they weren't, it may be a problem log. We may have to overwrite it because sometimes, like it'll just keep staying like it's not in the right locate category, or it just doesn't, they have an address in there. Maybe it's not verified, but so sometimes we have to troubleshoot them. But that is a known problem log. If something gets interrupted and it should have been closed, and we can force those. A couple other known problem logs as well is if you have a multiple obligee case and one obligee is paid off and you have an active IWO, it's not going to let you start closure. So you don't want to terminate that IWO because you're enforcing on one obligee. So that's just a problem log. You send that in and then we'll close the one obligee. Yes, there you go, Mary. Yes, there's probably a bunch of reasons, and it's probably all in the handouts as well. And Mary is actually the case closure SME. She's on here as well. So you can pipe in anytime, Mary. So another thing too about closure is it was 60-day closure. It doesn't automatically close on the 60th day. Some people get confused, or they get they expect it to be closed and then they send it in to the help desk. What it is it's a weekly job that runs at the end of the week that will process all those weekly closures. So you should see it, the following Monday that your case was closed, and you should get a calendar review saying your case was closed. So what do you do, now once your case is closed, it's going to go on a closure report. You're going to get a calendar review. The closure report is the MM 430. And, what we used to do is if it's a Colorado order, and you may have already been in the process of this, you do the CSE 542, the notice of withdrawal, and get that filed with the courts. And that's letting the courts know that you're no longer involved with the case. So you would review it for that. After your payments have stopped, you can review, when you go to close the ledger, you can transition it to non-4D if it's a Colorado order. Use your best judgment. It's going to give you some questions, but, basically, if you transition it to non-4D, it's just going to create the registry only account. And, so it might start like kicking up, sending them coupons and stuff again too. So just to be aware of that. And then also, you just really want to be sure that 4D IWO payments, so if you got an IWO to Social Security and we try to terminate it, you may want to wait to close that ledger, and transition it. But we want to make sure that the payments have stopped, because this is what happens if you transition it to non-4D and forget about it. Well, all those payments that come in from that 4D income withholding order may just be going out on the non-4D account. So you can see that, especially with like an entity like Social Security, it's not always easy getting something stopped with them. So you just may want to be very careful, because it happens with regular employers, but it happens. And if no one says anything, the county's not going to really notice it, because the payments are just going to be going out on the non-4D side. And, it could go on for years. So it could be like a big mess. Maybe the payments are on hold on the non-4D and we can, get them signed, get them back to the 4D. But, so just be conscious of when you're transitioning stuff to non-4D. If you're not sure, we can always transition it to non-4D later as well. Another thing too is on multiple obligees, they need to be in the same world. So you never want to transition one obligee to non-4D if we have another obligee, that we're active. So they want to stay active in the same worlds. So we can, that's pretty much, most counties, that's their process, do a notice of withdrawal, the case is closed. Now we used to send the files off site. Now it's all digital, electronic. So I have no idea, I guess maybe everyone just kind of has it now forever. You don't even have to worry about destroying case files anymore. But go ahead and go to the next screen. And I'm just going to go over a little on this case main screen. So that top part, this is the top part is where you actually update the case class and status. And or if it's an immediate closure code, you could close it there. And then below that is where you do the 60-day closures. And yeah, right there. And so something new that we did put in recently, and I think this was from like a ACES users group system change request. We did add in that UPA edit. If you were in Kathy's financial confident training, she talked about it a little bit too. But so you will, so this is a new error you will see, and it'll say, you know, there's UPA due, and that's like if you're enforcing and maybe there's another FAD case or another county attached to you somewhere, you know, there could be UPA owed on one of their counties, so it gives them a chance to, you know, because we used to just close the case and then say tough, you know, if you had money owed, you know, it's too late, it's closed or whatever. So that's why that's in there. And so you can go to the next screen, and this is the FinHIS screen. And so like this is where that current county would go to forgive their debt. And once they do that, then the enforcing county can go in and close that case. And I know Mary sent out a broadcast message too about, you know, the counties communicating, and you know, I guess if they don't work it out or whatever. But that's I just want to show you the screens, and that's where you go to, you know, if you run into that new UPA error. So let me see what else. So yeah, definitely terminate your income withholding orders, terminate, you know, satisfy your judgments, or if you do partial satisfaction of judgments, just clean up that case before you just close it and dump it off. You know, sometimes we're in a big rush to just say, oh, they closed the case, let's get it out of here. Not always thinking about all the enforcement remedies or possible intercepts that are in the process behind the scenes, you know, or just trying to get the case out of there, and then, you know, we'll worry about getting payment stopped later. So so just be aware of that. And did anyone else have any other questions about case closure that are real quick? Okay. All right, well, let's just jump to the multiple obligors real quick. Oh, yes.
Do you have a question about case closure? Oh, there it is, Frank.
Yeah, I think that's like up to your county, right? I'm not sure. Mary might be able to answer that.
Yes, it's a county process.
County. So I know Denver, you know, some of the counties are more, they'll wipe off UPA and debt and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so multiple obligors. Renee touched on multiple obligees. People get them confused all the time. Now, one big difference is this is the actual problem log. So usually multiple obligees you can do on the county side unless you get an active court case error. But the multiple obligors really is something, it's a problem log. And the two common scenarios is, let's say we have basically it's multiple people having to pay on a court case. So you have a dad ordered to pay mom. Okay, we have that case on ACES. Custody changes, roles reverse. Now mom pays dad. So because we already have a JV on the system, we can't add that same court case. So that's why we have to add it with a different JE or DE. Now this is only for ACES. You know, the courts don't know what a JE is or DE is, but this is just our workaround in ACES, how we do this with the roles and keep it, you know, just how everything's kind of organized on the system. So so that's a problem log. One reason it's a problem log is we want to make sure and clean up some stuff on the judicial side so that if there is a non-40 account that we transition it over correctly, and get rid of, like, if there's like, sometimes there's like other duplicate IDs. And then the other scenario for multiple obligors is, let's say bio mom and bio dad are ordered to pay a relative. So there you go. You know, you got two people paying. So, you know, the dad's case could be the DE, and then the mom's case could be the DR. But basically that JV or DR has to be on the system on ACES first before you can submit that problem log, because, you know, it won't let you add a JE without there being a JV on the system. So, and Well, the other thing too is, like I said, the courts may not always know about the JV and JE, or the JE and DE. You may want to update your documents if you're filing documents with the courts. I know a long time ago they used to reject them because there is no DE or JE. I don't know if my internet lost there, but I don't know if it changed with e-file. Because now you're just selecting the court case and filing it in there. There's not like an actual, court clerk like filing your documents a long time ago. But either way, you just want to be aware that that the JEDE thing is really just the ACES thing. And you can go to the next screen, Renee. And this is the case main screen that I'm going to show you. I think I had a screen, did I not? Can you guys hear me? There we are. Okay. So actually, the county can do this part. You can add the JE or DE in the court case information in the new modernized case main. So you can do that part. If you don't feel comfortable, that's fine. We'll still do it. But yeah, we'll look at it, and we just want to make sure that there is actual role reversal, because we don't want to set up all this information and then it not even be ordered, because then it's even a bigger mess, So that's why we're very careful with these. Okay, so that is all I had. I think on the multiple obligors. Okay. Let me know if you got any questions.
Any questions for Frank? No questions? Okay, moving on. I think it's Cindy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Just waiting for my video here to load. Okay, so as many of you know, everybody tends to navigate ACES a little bit differently. I know there are multiple ways to get to one screen, whether it's using a command or going to the main menu and then selecting an option. Just everybody works differently, but luckily ACES can accommodate some of that. So having said that, we want to go over some of our common direct commands. We'll go over also known as table ACES, in the event that you're going to be on time or just.
Uh-oh, you're cutting out, Cindy, so hang tight. Let's see if it'll reset itself. Cindy, can you refresh and come back in? Cindy's going to refresh and come back in. Can you guys hear me, Renee? She's going to come right back in. Hold on a second. Yeah, she's going to refresh. Hang tight. She'll come back in. Technology's fun, right? There she is.
Hi, I'm back. Sorry.
That's better.
To be fair, I was able to see and hear myself, just so you know. Okay, so I'll just start over. I was just saying how everybody navigates ACES differently, and how you'll notice that some folks will get to certain screens by using a direct command or go to a main menu and then select an option. So we'll be going over that. We'll be going over setting up favorites in ACES, which will save you time going from screen to screen. We'll also go over looking up our coworkers or colleagues in tables and setting up an ACES mail buddy. I can't speak. Okay, so direct commands, you are able to enter a command on your non-modernized screens, and there's a ton of commands. So we've selected the most common ones to go over today. Okay, so next screen, please. Okay, so here are the most common commands that are used. We have payrex, enforcement sum, IA menu, and the IVA INQ screen. You'll notice that the payrex commands are very similar, but the one thing that's different between those is that one will display the payment source while the other will just have the amounts. That's important depending on what you're using the information for. Enforcement sum, it's a quick overview of the enforcement remedies, except for your passport remedy that you'll have to retrieve from the SSP portal. Your IA menu, that will take you to your menu where you can issue or terminate IWOs for both support and medical. IVA-INQ, that's your command to view your TANF history, your payment amounts, and your dates. That's a very, very handy command. Renee likes that one. Next.
My favorite, for sure.
Next slide, Renee.
There
Okay,
you go.
so continued. You have your ledger sum screen, which will display your balance with current MSO. You have your NCP address information page, which is APADDR. Your CP address information page, which is RAADDR. You have your employment menu page, which is APEMPL, your pay plan. And you have just the inquiry command, which will take you to your inquiry screens. So if you're not an enforcing county, you can see your current county or just a different county's information on a case. You have your case sum, which displays your case summary, and your judgment screen, which is LSTJUDG, if you have any. Next slide, please. Okay, and as I mentioned, you can set up these direct commands as your favorites. So this is actually a screenshot of my favorites. As you can see, I have a ton saved on there. You can set up as many as you want and modify them, and you can change the order, whether you want one to be your first command or at the bottom. Okay, so next slide, please. To set up your favorites, if you right-click on favorites, you'll get this little pop-up box with these 4 options. And next slide. So if you select new command and then type your information on there, and you don't have to name the command exactly the way it's entered. For example, if you want to say case summary instead of the command, which is case sum, you can do that just so you know what you can name them however you want, but just the command itself has to be the correct one. And then you hit add, and if you notice, ACES will add it at the bottom. And then I think I saw a question on there. If you right click on the command, it'll give you an option to say to move up or move down, and then you just kind of have to move it up all the way, but you can only move up or down, but just right click on the actual command. So I have noticed that when you save them, it'll just add them at the bottom. So like the first one will be the first command you add will be your first one, and then if you add another one, it'll just go right underneath and so on.
Yeah, you have to organize them yourself. I know it's a pain, but you do. I had mine in like categories, and then I would sort the boxes, but you got to use the arrows. So if you save them, it's going to save the bottom ones at the bottom. Yes, there is a list. It's called list command for all the direct commands. I'll type it in the chat.
Okay. So like I said, once you add it, then we'll add it at the bottom of the screen. Okay. Next slide, please. Oh, so Cindy, so you said you've sorted yours, but it doesn't save them and it goes back? Huh. Okay. Will you shoot me an email and I'd be happy to troubleshoot that with you, because I don't think I've heard of that. Have you guys, Renee, Frank, anybody?
I have not heard that. I've sorted mine and they've saved, so I'm going to have to check that. We'll check on that.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know.
Thank you for letting me know, because mine save in order. Because like I said, I sorted mine in categories and put the direct command under the categories. Yeah, we'll take that back. Good to know.
Yeah, I just sorted mine, I want to say last week, actually. Okay, so the next thing we wanted to talk about is we have a statewide address book, which also known as tables, where you can find contact information for folks, child support professionals across the state. So you can go into tables, if you type the command tables, and you can search for somebody and find their email address or their phone number. Just keep in mind that that person would have to update their information in order for that to display. So we do encourage everybody to update their information. That way we can find each other in the event that we need assistance on a case. So like I said, you type in tables in ACES, and with option E, user ID table, and you'll have that little pop-up box that's right there, and you type it, you can type in their last name, and it'll bring up everybody with that same last name, or you can add a comma and the first initial or something like that. Okay, next slide. Oh, that's that list that it pulls up after you enter people's information. Okay. Again, like I said, it's tables will only display the information that's updated by each user. I do understand that some folks don't like to include like their direct phone numbers or that kind of stuff, but just know that this is all internal. Okay, ACES Mail Buddy. This is a great feature because if you're going on leave or vacation, or you just want to have somebody to be your backup, you can list somebody as your mailman in ACES and keep them there for as long as you'd like, or you can change it or modify it as you need to. To do so, you just, from the main menu, you can select option G. Sorry, my screen is so small and I can't see. 1 second, let me maximize this. I think my screen froze, guys, I'm sorry.
Do you need the next screen? I'm sorry.
Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So next slide, please. Okay, so in the mail menu, option G, and you select modify personal data, and you have this little, you'll have this little box where you enter in the information of the person that you want to be your mail buddy. Please know it's very, very important that you enter in their information completely. For example, if you have an EL number, you need to include your EL, your county code, and then your full tech ID. If you have an extra space in there, something's missing and it won't work. Also, please note that your mail buddy can only read your unread messages. So anything that you've opened, they will not be able to see. It's also important to note that some users out there don't have an EL number, they have an EN number. So just make sure you have the information correct.
Hi, Cindy. I'm sorry
Hi.
to interrupt you. I just want to let you know that we have 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Cool.
So Wendy has a chat there, Cindy.
Oh, I can't see it.
I can read it to you.
Okay.
So Wendy has a question. She has a tech that's moving out of the country, and she was designated to be her proxy. She was since moved to another county, and you assume she has a login through that county now. But every now and then I still get mail for her. How do I remove myself as her proxy? So she should have had a termination, right, Cindy?
Yes, so she's active in the other county. Well, she can't be. She has to be. Is she X'd out from your county, Wendy? Has she been completely removed?
She's no longer with Lake County. Yeah.
Okay, so her ACES. Okay, so if she hasn't been X'd out of ACES from your county, that means she probably doesn't have access to the new county, because we do watch that.
Yeah. You might have to check her mailbox. Wendy, would you send that in to us?
Yes.
Send it to Cindy Quintana in an email. We'll make sure that's clear.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Next slide. I'll type it in the chat. All my chats are coming in now. And these are just my ACES Mail Buddy notes, and it's most of what I mentioned is just make sure you include the complete user ID, and make sure you're using the correct one, because then if that person goes on leave, and the county will have to send a problem log or just reach out to us so we can update the information on our end. Okay, next slide. Okay, our ACES limitations and problem logs required. So there are certain functions in ACES that will require a problem log, and we just wanted to kind of review over the most common functions. So class and status change when you have multiple counties, when you have one that's current and the other one that's enforcing. Application dates for either copy overs or just a mistake that the wrong date was entered. Closure of AC cases. Multiple obligors, so adding a DE or a JE order, updating the assistance flags if applicable, and then of course returning payments to other states. Those are the most common ones that we see. Next slide. So from this list, can you spot which one requires a problem log? Next slide. Oh.
They're answering. Oops.
And those are our answers right there. So we do have, you know, we realize that some of these can cause an inconvenience, but we try to work these as fast as we can, and we know you're waiting on them. So, but thank you for your patience.
Okay.
Any other questions that I can help you with? And if you think of any later on, I think Renee put my email in there. Please send me an email. I'm happy to help.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming to our session. Make sure you download the documents that we put in here for you. There's some desk aids and also this handout. If you need anything, you know, there's the hotline. You also have all of our emails if you need help. We know there's so many new people out there, so just make sure to reach out to us if you need anything. Yeah, they're on the document tab. The documents are actually in this agenda here. So if you go scroll down a little bit on the page, you can actually see all the documents and they're downloadable. Or if you go to the documents page in the training, all of our documents are listed there under this training, how to rock ACES. So thank you for coming today. Anything else?
Nope. Just if everybody's finished, then just want to say thank you all for attending, and thank you Renee and Ann and Frank and Cindy for your presentation. It was very knowledge. I mean, it had a lot of information. So thank you so much. For those of you that are here, this is the last session of the day. So make sure you go down to the feedback and do the surveys about the session, just letting us know how you liked it. And then also make sure that tomorrow morning you come back in if you're scheduled for the plenary speaker at 10 a.m. and we'll hopefully see you then. Okay. Y'all have a good night. Bye.
Thank you.